Hey, what's going on, folks? I thought since everyone seemed to kind of like the other wheat cent video I did a little while back, I'd make another one. So let's talk about 10 or so, 10 or 11, maybe 12, I don't know, 10 or so wheat pennies that you can find when you're looking at local coin stores or when you're at conventions, or maybe if you're lucky enough to come across some wheat cents in your pocket change. And then you can turn around and sell that bad boy for maybe a couple $100, which would be pretty cool. So let's start the list off with the 1926 S wheat penny, but I'll talk a little bit about the D as well. And these range a lot in value. Generally, they go for between like 10 and upwards of about 75 or $80, but there are ones that can go well over $1,000. And then I think the record auction for one of these is around 90 grand or so for a 1926 S. And the S is considered a semi-key date. There was just over 4.5 million of those made. And again, they are rare, but if you come across them, they can garner a pretty good amount when you go to sell it, especially if you can get it graded. And especially if you can get it graded high. You know, color is a big part of it, condition's a big part of it. These are going to be more valuable than the D and P counterparts, so the Denver and Philadelphia Mint counterpart for the 1926, due to that low mintage of 4.5 million. Whereas, for example, the Denver one, which bears no mint mark, has 28 million of them made, and the Philadelphia one has 157 million of them made. So you can imagine why this price can be in upwards of $1,000 for a really good condition 1926S. Next, we'll talk about the 1923S wheat penny, which is a similar value. Their low end is around like $8 and upwards of around 100. They have 8.7 million of them that were produced, and a red designation is worth at least $100 depending on its condition if it's graded. But auction records for these are way off the charts, as a couple of them have sold for well over 100 grand. But don't outweigh some of the other wheat cents that we'll talk about that aren't some unicorn coin like a 1909 VDBs and stuff like that. On average, again, they sell for like $6 or $7 ungraded, and upwards of maybe 75, $80. Some maybe around 100 if they're really, really nice. And then these can go for well over $1,200 if they grade high. Next is the 1916 S wheat penny. So there's a little bit of a trend with the San Francisco Mint due to the fact that most of the time it was producing a lot less in mintage of the penny in relation to counterparts being produced at Denver or Philadelphia. So the 1916S is a really good coin, even though its production is 22 million. But due to slightly lower production amounts in, well, Denver or Philadelphia, but primarily San Francisco, the 1916S can get you anywhere from around $9 on a low end, all the way in upwards of $150 ungraded, and then well over $1,250 to $1,300 for one that grades pretty well. The next one is 1 year previous and really about the same price, but the 1915S has very, very low mintage when it comes to San Francisco's production amount. Now, with the other mints out there in Philadelphia and Denver at the time, they also had extraordinarily low amount of them that were made. But at San Francisco, only 4.8 million of them were produced. Philadelphia is 29 million and Denver was 22. But due to that low mintage at the San Francisco Mint, the 1915S wheat penny usually starts out around 30 or $40 and then goes in upwards of $1,500 on the high end, depending on grade. And then, of course, there's ones that have graded, top of any ever found. And due to being a semi-key date, they'll sell for, close to $120,000, $130,000. But you're talking a coin that's going to grade on the highest end of MS value. The next on the list is the 1920S wheat cent, which jumps up a little bit in value. I mean, on a decent grade, you're talking around $1,500 or $1,600, which is pretty cool. And the 1920S doesn't have anything different graphics-wise, but due to having multiple known errors, you can really get great value out of these that far exceeds like $1,500 and goes into the tens of thousands. Known errors are lamination errors where the outer layer of the coin is flaked off, or even has cracks. There's known off-center strikes, and that's when the die itself strikes the depiction on the coins off-center. There's also a super rare version of this coin where Argentinian coin planchets were used. Mistakenly, there's only 15 of them known, and those are the ones that are going to sell like closer to 100 grand plus, depending on what condition they are, and would be absolutely wild if you found them. The next on the list is the 1913 D wheat penny. So the first one on the list that's going to have the Denver mint mark. This is a really good one to look for. It has a mintage of 15.8 million, so really low comparatively to many other years of the wheat cent penny. Now, the San Francisco Mint did only mint 6.1 million of these at the same year, so 1913. So that coin is one that you're going to see here and we'll talk about in a minute. But the 1913D, due to that low mintage, can go for anywhere from around $4 in really beat up condition and upwards of a couple $100. And then if it's graded pretty decently, they go for like $1,500 to $2,000. And then of course ones that sell for exorbitant amounts that are really, really, really high graded. Next on our list is the 1912S, so a pretty early date wheat cent with a mintage of only 4.4 million, so super low. Now, the Denver Mint only made 10.4 million of them, so it had a low mintage and is a pretty good value. But the S holds a semi-key date value of around $40 on the low end and upwards of like $300 in decent ungraded condition. And then you can see them go for a couple $1,000s in a pretty good graded condition and in upwards of like 10-20 grand plus when you see the high-end ones go at auction. The 1925S is kind of like a mid-series wheat cent that's really good to look for. The 1925S is going to be the next one on this list. They hover around 1,800 to 2 grand in pretty good condition. The 1925D and the S are both really worth looking for amongst really any wheat cent at this point. But comparatively to the Philadelphia coins from the same year, Philadelphia pumped them out that year. There was like 140 million of them. But out of Denver, there was only 22.5 million of them. So it's a really, really good coin to look for. And out of San Francisco, there was only 26 million of them. The 1925 D coin, as mentioned, is a great coin to look for. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But the 1925 S generally sells on really low end, like $2. In really good condition, ungraded, a few $100s. And then when you find ones that are graded really well, they sell for anywhere from like 2 grand to like $2,200 or more. The 1925 Ds are similar value. They're really hovering about the same. There's a lot of them that you find that are going to be really, really beat up unless you're talking graded coins. And then of course you're going to pay kind of whatever market value is. Generally, these are about 10% more than their S counterpart. Next on the list, speaking of Denver coins, is the 1924D wheat cent, which jumps up a few $100s more, as well as the next few we're going to talk about, but are great coins if you're able to get a hold of one. Or if you have a full collection, you got one in it, now you'll know kind of a value to it if it's ungraded. They usually start out around $40, somewhere $40, $45. But one that's like close to mint state can sell for around 2 grand. The closer you get and higher in MS value the coin is, and depending on color of the coin. There was only 2.5 million 1924 D wheat cents made. This semi-key date coin is just going to have great value to it due to that low mintage. And there is a few errors known in 1924 pennies across both D and S pennies that are like off-center strikes, as well as a few lamination errors that can make them really valuable. Again, they start out at like $40, $45. They can go for quite a bit of money, a few $100, even ungraded, and then they can go for the thousands if they grade really high. Next on the list would be the 1918S wheat penny, which is another one that can really sell for a few $1,000s in a good condition. There was 34.6 million 1918S wheat cents made, but that's compared to the 288 million that were pumped out of Philadelphia and 47.8 million out of Denver. So that low mintage for this year of penny is going to really add to the value of it. And these can sell for really on a super low, like 75 cents if you find them in the wheat cent tray at a local coin store that's all beat up. But in decent ungraded condition, a couple $100s, and in a decent MS grade, closer to like 3 grand. So these coins can really garner a good value for that low mintage for that specific year. There was some historical stuff that happened in 1918, but that's kind of beside the point. For the actual series of coin, that's really going to add to the value. Next on the list is the 1913 S wheat cent that I mentioned a little bit back in the video a few coins ago. And the 1913 S wheat penny is a really good one because it starts out at around $25 to $30. It's also going to sell for a pretty good amount of money if you can get a high MS grade on one. Ones that I see go that are like MS 60 and above usually sell for close to 1,500 to 2 grand. I'll put links to all these coins in the description box on PCGS's website so you can verify prices for yourself as they change all the time. But the 1913S wheat cent, due to its low mintage of only 6.1 million, really garners a good value if you're able to get one. The Denver Mint also produced a pretty low amount at 15.8 million coins that year. That's another good penny to look for as well. The next one on the list, and I think is going to be the last one for this list, is going to be the 1914S. Now, 1914Ds are way, way more valuable, but you're able to come across 1914S's a little more readily. S's start out around $30, and they can go for about 3 or 4 grand in really decent condition. Now, really, really high-grade coins can sell in the tens of thousands of dollars. The 1914S Lincoln cent in like an MS65 that's also certified red, they've sold for thousands and thousands of dollars. There's several instances of those coins selling for more than like 10 or 15 grand, and there's ones that have even sold in the $20,000 to $30,000 range over like the last couple of decades. The 1914 penny is part of the Lincoln cent series, and so it started with the same design as the one in 1909, minus a couple of initials. And these coins are really, really low minted. I mean, there's 4.1 million of them and only 1.1 million out of Denver. So to talk about that coin as well, the 1914D Denver coin is worth quite a bit of money, usually topping out a couple $1,000s more than the S counterpart we just talked about. And they usually start at around 70 or 80 bucks in ungraded condition as long as it's not totally trashed, as they have just such an extremely, extremely low mintage amount and are really, really rare to come across, but are highly sought after by really any type of coin collector. I know I'd love to have a 1914D penny in my collection, and I don't have one. Keep an eye out for these wheat cents. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're new to the channel, hopefully I didn't bore you for the last whatever amount of minutes, and you enjoyed it enough to hit the subscribe button. If you have a channel about really anything collectible, if you watch any of my videos, you know I kind of just collect a bunch of stuff. So please link me to your channel in the comments. I will check it out and subscribe to it. Otherwise, keep being you. You're awesome. You're the only person that's like you, and that's what's up. So I will see you guys in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, everyone.